Hello, YouTubers and health conscious people around the world. My name is Srinivas. I'm an IT professional and I have a passion for health and nutrition. Today, I'm going to talk about carbohydrate metabolism and what are good carbs and bad carbs. Before I delve into more details, here is a word of disclaimer. The information I'll be sharing is strictly general information purpose only. Don't use this as a medical advice. As such, there is no parent-doctor relationship is shared. The use of this information shared is at user's own risk. And this information doesn't substitute medical advice, diagnostics, or treatment. I strongly believe in this, and it makes sense. Our body is its best doctor and food is its best medicine, meaning we need to pay attention what we put in our body, be cognizant on how we feel after you eat a meal, such as do you feel fatigued or do you feel energetic, are you sleepy, etc. That way we can be the best judge of the food that we are eating, how it feels, how we feel about it. Because if not, you may be eating unhealthy food over a period of time. You will have all kinds of health issues, and you end up going to the doctor. Guess what? Doctors are programmed to give you some kind of medication. They're not going to check, what you've been eating, and or advise you any kind of nutritious benefit as a cure, because they're being programmed to give you medication which is influenced by pharma industries. Otherwise, they lose license. And also the medication they recommend may not work 100%, but it'll have some other side effects. So honest is on us to learn and educate ourselves to become more smart about our own body. Remember, we only have one body that we live in day in and out, and we need to treat this body as a temple. Today we are living in a energy abundant world where we find food everywhere. Now, paying attention to what we eat matters a lot. Food industries will try to market and make everything appetizing for their benefits. They don't care about our health, nor the doctors. So, as I jump into this topic, first I would like to discuss macronutrients. At a high level, we have three different types of macronutrients: proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. 1 gram of protein contains 4 calories, and we use these proteins to build and repair tissues or immune functions. It is used to preserve muscles, hormone production, and proteins are used to derive enzymes. Now, carbohydrates. 1 gram of carbohydrates generates 4 calories, and carbohydrates such as rice, bread, pasta, whatnot. The fruits and starches, they all come under carbohydrates. Why do we need them? Mainly for fuel, brain function to some extent, and stored energy is stored as glycogen. Fats. 1 gram of fat gives us 9 calories of energy. And why do we need it? Mainly fats are used for cell membrane support, nerve function, hormonal production, and fat for soluble vitamins need fat, and energy. Obviously, fat is used as one of the other alternatives of energy besides carbohydrates. So I'm going to delve more into carbohydrates because, as you can see, proteins and fats are pretty much used in either body function, body structure, cell membrane function, hormone generation, and production, enzyme production. But carbohydrates, as you can see, is not involved in any of those functions. So I question, why do we need carbohydrates? I think this topic is mostly around the need for carbohydrates, or maybe limitation of carbohydrates. So this is a famous food pyramid that is recommended by US FDA over a period of time. We were told to eat this way. That means eat plenty of carbohydrates at the bottom, right? And next is vegetables and fruits, and moderately eat, fats and proteins, blah, blah, blah. So, if you see, ever since this recommendation was made, people have been strictly following around the world. And as a result, we are seeing what we are seeing. Most of the people are obese, some kind of insulin resistance driven issues, such as fatty liver disease, heart attacks, cardiovascular issues, erectile dysfunction, polycystic ovarian syndrome, whatnot. So, as I said, I'll talk more about carbohydrates, but let's discuss what are carbohydrates. So, carbohydrates generally divided into simple carbs, complex carbs. Simple carbs are further divided into monosaccharides and disaccharides. Monosaccharides are glucose, fructose, galactose. Glucose is found, our body takes the carbohydrates and converts them into glucose once it digests. And then fructose is mostly predominant in the fruits, and then galactose is in milk and dairy products. Disaccharides are a mix of, either of these monosaccharides. For example, maltose is formed when a glucose is mixed with the glucose. Sucrose is a mix of glucose and fructose. And lactose is a mix of glucose and galactose. It is predominantly available in all dairy products. Complex carbohydrates are starches. Basically, this is a stored energy in the plants, all vegetables. That's called starch. Glycogen is a stored form of energy in our body. These are all complex carbohydrates and fiber. So I'm going to talk a little bit about metabolism so that I can discuss more into macronutrient metabolism later. So what is a metabolism? Metabolism, it is a phenomenon in our body cells, and it is able to change food into energy, convert food into energy. The food can be either carbohydrates, fats, or proteins. As we eat, within our body cells, it converts to ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy we generate. And then we burn those calories, the energy that we gained will be burned as when we are in a fasting state. So there are two forms of metabolism: anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is the process of building molecules from smaller molecules. In this process, it requires energy, right? So as you can see, as we consume foods like proteins, carbohydrates, and fat, the proteins are digested into amino acids in our body. Carbohydrates are digested into glucose, and then fats are digested into glycerol and fatty acids. So this is the form of catabolism, because our body is digesting, converting those macronutrients into micronutrients in our body, such as amino acid, glucose, and glycerol and fatty acids. Now, anabolism is storing that energy into our muscles, our fats, whatnot. So basically, anabolism is a process of building the structure in our body. Anabolism happens when we are in a fed state, like when we eat. The amino acids, glucose, and glycerol and fatty acids go into our body's structure, and we get energy and we store the energy. Now, catabolism is the opposite of it, and this happens when we are in a fasted state. When we don't eat food for a long time, we burn the calories that we stored earlier, such as protein, again, converts to amino acids, and the lipids, fats, are converted into glycerol and fatty acids. So this is very important to know about metabolism. Now let's talk about macronutrient metabolism. It is a bit complex, but I just want to simplify this because this explains. This is the critical part in our digestion and metabolism. As you can see, I'm going to talk about glycolysis. glycogenesis, glycogenolysis, glyconeogenesis. There's a Krebs cycle, electronic transport chain, lipogenesis, lipolysis, ketogenesis, ketolysis. The naming convention I actually divided, basically, olysis means breaking of the nutrition, and genesis means creation of a new nutrition or energy. So as we eat, let's say, as we eat, food that contains carbs, proteins, and fats in our small intestine, the food gets digested into glucose. Carbohydrates are digested into glucose. Proteins are digested into amino acids. Fats are digested into glycerol and fatty acids. And in case of glycolysis, as you can see, number one, our glucose and amino acids go into portal vein. From the portal vein, they get transported into liver. So liver actually uses this glucose and converts to, in a glycolysis, converts to pyruvate, and from the pyruvate, it converts to acetyl-CoA to Krebs cycle, from Krebs cycle into the electronic transport chain through which we generate ATP. ATP is the energy that we experience as we eat the food, and the ATP is adenosine triphosphate. So glycolysis happens in anaerobic process. That means there is a oxygen, plenty of oxygen. When there is a lack of oxygen, the glucose converts to lactate, pyruvate and lactate, because there is no oxygen. So as a result, body stores the energy in a form of lactate in the blood. So as the glucose gets converted into glycogen, that is a stored form of energy that we store in our body, in our liver, in our muscles, and excess glycogen is converted into fats. So we talked about glycolysis. Glycolysis happens in the presence of oxygen, and then gets converted into energy. Now glycogenesis is the glucose molecules converted into stored form, which is glycogen, which I'm showing this in number 2, glycogenesis, creation of new glycogens. Glycogenolysis is breakup of this stored energy glycogen into glucose. This happens when we do exercise. The stored energy glycogen is converted into glucose, and then from the glucose we consume the energy. It goes into Krebs cycle, we generate energy. So that is number 3. Glyconeogenesis is basically, in the absence of glucose, the body has a ways to generate glucose. That is through amino acids and glycerol and fatty acids. Mostly glycerol. So body can use either amino acids, lactate, and glycerol. These are stored form of energy the body can tap into and generate glucose, and through the glucose goes into pyruvate, Krebs cycle, and we generate energy, right? So it is not needed to have or in carbs in our diet. A little carbs is okay, but body has a ways to generate glucose if needed. Now let's talk about fatty acids. Fatty acids gets converted to glycerol and fatty acids, and glycerol can be used in the pyruvate to generate glucose, and fatty acids goes directly into cell membrane within the liver, or it can be any cell within our body, and then generates energy. Lipogenesis is generation of new fats, as can be seen in number 7. This is a formation of new fats. This usually happens in excess of energy. If a glycogen is excess in liver or muscles, the excess glycogen is converted into lipo, which is fats. Lipolysis is breaking up of fats into glycerol and fatty acid. This happens in a fatty state, in a fasted state. When you are fasting, the body will tap into our fats and in the adipose tissue and breaks up into glycerol and fatty acids. Ketogenesis is another form of energy. In the absence, this only happens in the absence of glucose in our body. The body consumes the fatty acids, and since there is a lack of oxygen, lack of glucose, the body converts into acetyl-CoA, but there is a lot of acetyl-CoA that it generates. As a result, it converts that into ketones, as shown in number 9, ketogenesis, which is called ketogenesis. And then this ketones is the primary energy for our brain, and most of our cells consume ketones except for red blood cells. And then these ketones goes into our brain, and then brain cells converts into acetyl-CoA, and then generates ketones. This is the ketolysis, basically breaking down of ketones. So this is another simple form of how our metabolism works, based on the macronutrients such as carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. The byproduct of this process is, for example, for proteins, byproduct is urea cycle, because proteins have carbons, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And this nitrogen is converted into amino acids, and eventually it is excreted out as a urea cycle in our urine. And fats are burnt as it gets metabolized. End product of fat metabolism is energy, obviously, and carbohydrates and water are the end products that is excreted. Carbohydrates are exhaled when we do breathe out of energy, breathe out of air. That is basically carbohydrates, and the water is excreted in the urine. Now the $1,000,000 question is, do we need carbs? There are essential fats and there are essential proteins, but there are no essential carbohydrates. Just remember that. Proteins, obviously, they are needed. They build the structure of our body, muscles, skin, hair. Proteins are used to make enzymes and hormones, transports and stores nutrients. So proteins are essential. Fats provides energy, unlike proteins. Makes and balances hormones. Most of the cholesterol is made out of fat, and cholesterol is a main precursor for all hormones such as estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, whatnot. Fats are used for cell membrane, buildup of cell membranes, brain, and nervous systems. Helps transport fat soluble vitamins such as D, E, K, A vitamins are all fat soluble. So fats are really important for us as we consume these vitamins. Now carbs pretty much provides energy. In the absence of carbohydrates in the diet, the body will use the fat for energy. So as you can see, carbohydrates are not used in any form of like a building of our body tissues or hormones or whatnot. It's primarily used as an energy, and excess of energy may cause all kinds of issues. So got to be careful with carbohydrates. Well, let's talk about essential proteins. When I say essential proteins, these proteins are not available in our body, and our body doesn't make these proteins. So these are essentials. We have to take these exogenously, right? There are 9 essential proteins that we have to consume, and we consume this through animal proteins and vegetable proteins. Let's talk about essential fats. Essential fats are EHA, DPA, and ALA. These are all omega-3 fats and are essential for our body. Most of the brain of our brain is made up of these omega-3 fats, so it is very, very crucial for us. Well, fats are divided into saturated and unsaturated, which I will talk later. But it's mostly saturated fats are very useful, and some monounsaturated fats are useful. But polyunsaturated fats, you got to be careful because some of them are manufactured by humans. Anything that is human manufactured as a food, you got to be careful and watchful because our human body doesn't understand the mechanism to digest and leverage it to the benefit of the body. So essential fats, fats are divided into saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Most of the saturated fats comes from animal fats, butter, lard, tallow, ghee, whatnot. Unsaturated fats are polyunsaturated, monounsaturated. Within the polyunsaturated are the omega-3 fatty acids, ECOSUP, EPA, DHA, and ALA. These are the very crucial fats of our body. Most of our body is built on, our brain is predominantly built on omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-6 fatty acids, got to be careful with these. These are the human-made oils, seed oils. In a way, I call these as a grease for the automobile. So technically, these oils should not be eaten by human beings. These are canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, and many seed oils. All these oils are not very useful for our human body. And there are omega-9 fatty acids, which are monounsaturated fat. These are useful for our body. Olive oil, avocado oil, peanut oil, almonds, coconut oil. These are all useful oils, fatty acids for us. Now, essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are the ones that our body doesn't make. As a result, we need to take exogenously. There are 9 of them. Our body makes the remaining, amino acids, but 9 of the amino acids, which is shown here, they all need to be consumed exogenously, and we take this from meat, mostly chicken and eggs, all kinds of vegetables. Any vegetable items, they have some proteins and fats, so we consume through that. But most of the amino acids are available in meaty foods. Now let's talk about healthy carbs and unhealthy carbs. So how do we define healthy carbs and unhealthy carbs? So glycemic index is something that we need to understand before we go into the details. Glycemic index is used as a measure on how quickly a food raises the blood sugar levels in our body, right? So why is it important? Because as we take the food, if it spikes your blood sugar levels way high, then that causes an issue in our body because our body is not designed for spikes, huge spikes in glucose levels like this. Because over a period of time, our body is programmed for millions of years eating one way. Suddenly, in the last 50 to 100 years, we've been eating so much of carbohydrates that humans are manufacturing, such as all these rice and pasta and bread. Most of it is, depleted of nutrition. As a result, these food spikes a lot of sugar in our body, and our body is not able to handle it. As a result, it needs to secrete a lot of insulin to manage the glucose levels. So glycemic index is something we need to watch out, and it is a measure of sugar levels in our blood. The low glycemic index foods are anything that are 0 to 55, medium are 56 to 69, and high is 70 to 100. As you can see, the the healthy carbohydrates are lentils, broccoli, cabbage. All these foods are very healthy because their glycemic index is less than 55. Medium is something got to be watchful, and I would never try these foods that have a high glycemic index anything above 56. Those are little bit dangerous and need to control them. And obviously, rice, pasta, bread, they all come in high glycemic index foods. So those are unhealthy carbohydrates for us. As you can see, glucose, sugars, they spike our blood sugars a lot. And believe it or not, rice, potatoes, all these kinds of foods have high starch in them, and starches cause high spikes in our body. And fiber is something, carbohydrates with fiber actually acts as a buffer and doesn't spike the blood sugar a lot. It actually, sugar is released into the blood slowly because of the fiber. So let's talk about insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a an issue that is realized with excess energy in our body. As we consume more and more carbohydrates, our body generates insulin resistance. Our cells resist the insulin outcome. That is, insulin is mainly used to push the energy into the cell. The more energy you push, the cells kind of give up. They say, I can't handle this energy, I'm going to give up. So as a result, we don't get enough energy, even though we are eating. We eat a lot of food and we don't get the energy. It's mainly because of this insulin resistance, which is caused by excess energy. The outcome of insulin resistance is obesity, you know, type 2 diabetics, polycystic ovarian syndrome, atherosclerosis, dyslipidemia, and hypertension. As you can see, this insulin resistance causes different way for different, like women and men. So, for insulin resistance, in case of men, they generate more fat in the above the waistline. This is mostly visceral fat, often around the abdomen and stomach area. And then this is used to indicate an increased risk for metabolic syndrome. In case of women, excess weight is carried below the waistline, usually around the hips and thighs. But all these changes once women go through menopause, and after the menopause, it actually they have a reverse effect that they will have less estrogen, more testosterone. As a result, they start gaining the fat in the visceral area, exactly similar to what men will have symptoms for insulin resistance. That means they'll slowly grow mustache and then have visceral fat and high in testosterone, low in estrogen. So, in summary, my recommendation is cut all processed foods, especially foods that have high fructose corn syrup. Pretty much every processed food these days have high fructose corn syrup, so got to be careful with that. Cut all foods that comes in cans, wrappers, and boxes with barcodes, because you never know what these foods have. Most of these foods have preservatives in them, and these preservatives you know are causing a lot of issues to our body. Cut all sugars and non-sugar sodas. Any types of sodas is dangerous for our body. Cut all seed oils. Oh, this is really, these seed oils have been manufactured in the last 50 100 years, and anything that is human manufactured food such as seed oils are all dangerous because our body doesn't recognize them. These are canola oil, corn oil, all seed oils. Reduce high starchy food intake such as rice, potatoes, flour, bread. Avoid snacks between the meals. This increases our insulin levels and causes high spikes in sugar and doesn't allow you to burn the fat. Avoid deep fried foods because these have trans fats in them. With that, I end this session, and thank you for listening to me. And please subscribe to my channel, Healthtainment, and talk to you later in my next video. Thank you so much. Bye.